Personal qualities make up the first piece of the foundation. Next are the basic academic skills you need, not only to be a good employee, but also to get along in the world.
Many arithmetic skills, many English language communication skills are going to be a part of their everyday survival in the world of work.
Everything you learn in high school, it's not a waste of time. I mean, when you're in high school, that's what you tend to think, I'm never going to use this, I don't want to do this. Like logic and math and things, you have to sort of solve the problem, you're figuring it. And I think you run into things like that in life all the time. It helps you to understand the world better.
Really take classes and study stuff that you like, not necessarily things that you think are going to get you a job, because you can always transfer what you like into something you can do. And when I came to look for a job, I would get a job in something that I liked and knew I could do, and that the technical aspects would come, but that the basic skills were already there.
The basics: reading and writing, really understanding what you read, and being able to write clearly.
The writing skill is really important. Learn to write, learn to put things on paper succinctly and punctuate and grammar and all that stuff that you can't stand doing, but it's a really big deal because when you put it down on paper, if you don't know how to write or express yourself or how to do so correctly, you really can look ignorant when perhaps you're not.
I'm glad, I took the classes that I did and I learned how to write, because you do end up writing a lot of memos and letters, and if the letter doesn't sound right or isn't phrased right or is not correct, it's not going to give anyone a good impression of you.
There's so much to tell, and you got to tell it in such a short amount of time. So you got to editorialize in a way. You got to pick out the stuff that you think is important, and you've got to write along with that.
So much of making cases and having things stick and getting convictions has to do with the reports that are submitted, because that's a big part of the case.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Basic math skills are just as important on the job as basic English skills.
One day when I was in an architect's office working with a young man who had come through the architectural drawing program, and he was now placed at a drafting table, and he was using an architect scale, triangle, compasses, and he was laying a staircase out. And he was struggling, and he finally came up with a solution, and he turned up and looked at me and said, "There really is a use for math."
I really struggle with math all my life, and here I am in a bank dealing with numbers all the time. So there was something about it. Maybe it was the challenge that gave me the motivation to pursue a career in it.
This always goes with me, home, even at night. This and the pencil. Of course, you need to know how to read a blueprint. You need to understand lines, designs. You need to know how to measure. You need to know how to add and subtract and all that stuff. It's very, very important to us.
I use the Pythagorean theorem, every other day. Whereas in high school I thought I would never use it. But building cabinets, it's your number one rule.
Most employers don't expect employees, especially new ones, to have mastered every single task in the job description. Far more important are basic communication skills, like being able to listen.
Listening is the biggest skill that you need in order to do any kind of job. So I think that when you're in class, obviously, those kinds of skills, listening, understanding, interpreting, not only taking notes, but really letting it sink in is the key.
Too many times a reporter will be thinking of the next question they want to ask or the question after that. Listen to what the person is saying to you and play off of that.
People like someone who listens. If you hear what they're saying, then they take more interest in and you get better feedback that way.
If you're conducting an interview when a crime is being committed, you have to listen to each word very carefully, so that when you ask the person the same question in a different manner, and you want to hear the same answer, if you hear something different, you know there's something wrong. You need to read people, their body language. You need to read them from what they're saying, and some of the things that they don't say are just as important as what they say.
Just as the ability to express yourself helps in class, so speaking skills are essential to your on-the-job success.
Many of our business partners have identified the ability to speak grammatically correctly, to speak audibly, to pronounce words correctly, as being the single most important entry-level skill that new employers should have. I think in school that relates to the way in which you handle yourself within your classroom. Do you actively engage the teacher? Are you someone who raises a hand and asks a question? Do you follow up that question? Do you speak in such a way that everyone in the classroom hears you? Do you sit up and look attentive? Do you look interested? Do you look disinterested?
You probably have a bit of a shyness about, speaking in front of people or dealing with people. And the best thing that you can do about that is just actually do what you're afraid of the most. If I was sitting in a classroom and I had an idea, I would love to share it.
It definitely is like a bad situation.
No, I want to know if anybody agrees with that comment.
Because even if people attack it or create some tension in the class, tension between ideas, or even if it's a stupid idea, you find out something about yourself.
Talking to people, it's a very important part of the business. You're talking to all kinds of people, criminals, cops, professional people, doctors, politicians, people off the street who have never been on television before. So you've got to be able to relate to all of them. And the best way to learn it is to do it.
Sometimes the connections between basic school subjects and work skills are obvious. Sometimes they're not. How do you think all of the basic skills apply to each of these jobs? Repair person, cosmetologist, and healthcare worker. Stop the tape for discussion.